movement matters. Little movements matter. So as you start to ground and feel, so one of the things I love at the end of the year, and it's weird, like I had like took a lot of history in college and took a whole series of stuff on ancient civilizations, and not everyone had as precise a clock as we have now. But there are a lot of people that don't have a camera on, so I'm going to try to pretend not to be judgmental of that truth. That, but so like the lunar calendar doesn't line up as quite as well to the way that we measure time in relationship to how the sun goes around the earth. Remember, all that's freaking arbitrary, right? Like, we decided to have the anchor be how the sun goes around the earth. It's an arbitrary way to measure, right? But these other calendars often would have anywhere from we have a quarter of a day that doesn't line up, and that's why we call it leap year, right? And then these other calendars would have as many as 4 to 12 days that would be off, right? So at the end of each year, they'd have like the one, I'm trying to think, it was not the Assyrians, because they used to throw babies into fires, but it was one of those in the Fertile Crescent, right? Like between the Tigris and Euphrates, pardon me. And they would have like a party for 12 days, and they would consider that being those 12 days to be outside of time, right? Kind of like a straight carnival, right? Where I always found that a little bit interesting. And so this kind of, I try to think about, and as we all are going into another year and there's stuff ahead and all that stuff, I think it's kind of powerful to let yourself fall out of time, right? And just kind of, this is like, I hate the idea of making resolutions. Like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Like, if you just furrow your brow, somehow things will become more productive, right? But I do want to pass on or hope that one of the things you don't even have to tell anyone, and you don't need to say it out loud, take your practice more seriously. Now, whatever that means in your case, and serious isn't quite the right word, but one of the magnificent things about a yoga practice is that, there's dimensions here that we can't directly perceive and stuff. And what's great about yoga, for me, and asana in particular, is that instead of telling me what to believe about this kind of unseen connection between and among, right? It tries to reveal that truth through a set of experiences. And so your practice is your measure in a big way. And so if someone tells you something about a yoga pose, let's say, or about any, and it doesn't ever really show up in your practice, or you can see the hints of it, then two things are possible. Either it's not true, right? Which is, not true for you too, right? Or timing's not right. Right. And but the measure. So just for a second, try to open to the room by releasing your unconscious grip on your body. And now that's different than trying to force relaxation. So one of the things, like, for example, when I think about the students on this call, and like, I'm going to use Michael as an example, and not just his beard, right? But that he's constantly, because he has cerebral palsy, having things fire and be tense with a lot of tone, right? So the way that he's going to have to let go is going to be an art form and take a lot of practice, and it most likely will never come out as more relaxed muscles. But that doesn't mean that as he centers, it's just mental. So there's a zone in between that I think, at least my practice, is trying to get me better at allowing that. So feel your feet on the floor. And so the center of your chest may actually feel heavy if your body doesn't support it, but that's not actually true. It's whether you can be congruent with the potential of the energy in the center of your chest. That's part of why you lift your chest, is you're actually trying to access something. And I try to make it overt when I tell you to drop and then lift and notice the difference, because I know your mind is going to deny things that it can't quite understand. Right. So I'm thinking about, and then I'm listening to things like, maybe someone thinks this is like really the most integrated space. So I'm going to try to figure out, what do my shoulder blades have to do in relationship to support an opening sensation in the center of my chest? And there are definitely times where I don't want to be open here. Right. So it's not like it's better one way or another, but I get to access something differently. And how do my shoulder blades support that? How do my sitting bones support that? How do my feet on the floor support that? Right? What's the unchanging structure that allows for the boundary of realizing the uplifting part of my experience that's always here? And over time, if you don't feel and that part of what's here, either it's not time or it's not true for you. I pray that it's true for you, though. I hope you can find it. Right. So balance your head over your neck. As you know, I've been trying to, because I'm having so much joint pain, but like over the years, I'm trying to relinquish grip on my joints. Right. Without just collapsing. Right. So your ankles and your knees, I'm trying to remember, prana follows your consciousness, not just your mental awareness, but your consciousness more than your breath. So if I can create the structure, the presence of my feet, my sitting bones, my shoulders, my energy, my shoulder blades, the center of my chest, the balance over the top of the head, I'm trying to minimize the amount of effort, but move my body enough for there's reference for my mind to start to recognize that the landscape is much bigger than my mind wants it to be. So that's why I say things like open to what's behind you. The landscape is perpetually larger than your mind can feel. Mind has to collapse things into experience for it to have mental awareness. Your experience doesn't collapse. Your mind does. Bring your hands into prayer if you can. So now, I want you to, into this quiet part, start to introduce more intelligent effort. Right? So I'm grounding my elbows, and I don't care if your hands are in prayer or not, however you want to do it. But I'm actually making sure that I'm feeling more. I'm trying to activate awareness of my skin. I'm wondering about what the relationship between feeling the subtlety and suppleness of my skin relative to the softening of my jaw, relative to the lightening in my center of my chest, relative to my sitting bones, relative to my feet. All this can come into concert Yeah, actually. Do I do it perfectly? No. No. Hmm. So right now, my experience right now is being a measure of the places I feel. I can tell I'm a little bit swollen in this gland right here underneath my neck. All this because here's my measure, here's my calendar, right? Breath into each nostril, each lung, each sitting bone, each foot. Dang, I like it if I broaden across my collarbone. If I lift the center of my chest. So what's the source of hope, by the way? What are the experiences? Can it be realized in the body? Soften your jaw, the inside of your mouth. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Good, and then release. So ask yourself, what did you learn about the state of your body just now? Could be little, could be big, right? So I'm going to sit in, like I learned that I'm still shaking a little bit, just really slightly. It's better than it was last time we were together, right? But it's still there. I'm not going to be worried about it. It's getting better. What's your analogous experience? What did you learn? My measure is emptiness with boundary, not my effort. It's different than that. So what do you have to let go of in order to find and access this deeper place, whatever that means? Figure out something to let go of that can improve your yoga practice for next year. Very rarely is it something you should assert improvement of a yoga practice. It's not like, oh, if I could just hold that pose for 3 minutes longer, oh my God, I'd get so smart, right? Usually not. Usually it's something else. So take a moment here and identify something. Good. For me, I think that I have to let go of a certain kind of protection that I've been protecting against, right? But that doesn't mean I should be reckless. All right. So again, the great thing about your practice, so start moving around, of course, because we're, going into the end of the year. We're outside of time. You get to like talk to the universe a little bit differently, right? When you're outside of time, right? So, what's your dialogue with your experience? Right? I wonder, people think they have to be heard by the universe. I'm not so sure. Right? So I'm just like waking her up, right? Just trying to get the wisdom of, I'm gonna go over my head, of Angela's wisdom. Angelique, like, just that there's movement, for God's sakes. Right. And I'm finding where things get tight, and right, my elbow is bugging me a little bit, that shoulder is bugging me a little bit, but that's all right. And so this next time, as I'm like doing it kind of hollow at first, now I'm going to make sure I slightly lift my chest, and I'm going to transform the pose. So as soon as I lift my chest, I feel distance from here to here. There's a different kind of stretch. A shoulder blade goes in, a whole bunch of things happen, but I don't want to restrict that just to my shoulder. I want to ground my sitting bones, right? So I'm constructing a yoga pose, right? So I'm going to go over the other way, right? And then I'm going to lift my chest and go, okay, that changes everything. I can tell on this side, I particularly kind of block my carotid artery. I'm not sure why, right? So I have to like keep that relaxed as I'm moving and being in my body, right? And then forward again. So here's a good goal, right? Learn more about the front edge of your sitting bones this year, right? Learn about the front edge of your sitting bones without covering up between your torso and the top of your thighs. That'd be a really good thing to work on. Right. So as I'm forward here on the front edge of my sitting bones, I'm going to figure out how more connection to my sitting bones can help my lower abdomen lift up. Right. And then how does that, once I do that, what do my shoulder blades have to do to support? What do my feet have to do in order to make it more yogic? Right. And I'm going to breathe. I'm constructing from a core sensation. I'm constructing yoga poses in my own practice, right? So what I'm hoping, and then take your legs wide. What I'm hoping is that maybe this year you'll start to construct more and more yoga poses, right? Because if you don't develop a practice, so now I'm just trying to get my knees farther apart here. If you don't develop a practice, coming forward again, that you can use as a measure, right? Then you're going to just be following. And yoga is not about following. Yoga is about experiencing, right? And so I'm again trying to be more open. Like I'm glad for the triangle between my tailbone and my two knees. And then I'm going to lift off of that. And I'm going to want to overdo my low back because my mind wants to make me think I'm doing yoga, right? So I'm going to watch that. Hands on the knees. Then I'm going to drop my chest. And I'm going to try to coordinate pushing in on each knee and the lift of my chest as the same action, right? So I'm trying to create conditions of simultaneity, right? So again, that relationship between the grounding sensation. So when my mind is dull, I will separate different sensations. So I'm just going to push in my knees for a second and notice what happens, not emphasize the lift in the chest and like, hey, that's a underneath part, a grounded part. So that energy, when I go to lift my chest, needs to be part of the lift of my chest, right? So there I make it a yoga pose where I'm at, and then I'm releasing. So I'm not actually wasting the grounding, taking it for granted. Grounding lift. Now what I can tell is that when I push on my knees, my forearms have to tense. That's part of the pushing back, right? So I can't not push through my knees. But can I make it less choppy? So here I go, I'm gonna push in, make the effort in my arms, not just lift from my low back. Start to experience. Good. Now I can tell from that pose, I wish I had my feet more connected to the ground, which is hard when you're in a wheelchair and your feet don't quite hit the ground. Right? So I'm gonna like come forward and like make a connection, my mind to like actually feel. So I'm leaning forward, pushing my feet into the floor. And then from here, I'm gonna lift my chest, ground my sitting bones. So now instead of the grounding coming this way, it's going down, right? And then I can tell something's lost, right? The space between the pubis bone and the sternum is slightly lost when I come forward. So I'm gonna try to not lose it. So I'm having to go and feel. Good, and then it gets boring for God's sake. So I'm gonna lean over to one side here. Change gravity, introduce variation for my mind. I'm pushing down here. And I'm grabbing my wheelchair. I'm using leverage wherever I can, right? And I'm getting this connection. I'm gonna rock a little bit here, actually. I like it. I like it like that, right? Because it makes me feel empowered, right? When I go more with more effort, feel like something's springing into me, right? Which is just part of the illusion of your mind's control, but damn it, I'm liking it. Good, and then I'm gonna go the other way. Ooh, and watch all the one groin is different, cut, everything's different, right? And so, and I'm gonna rock it a little bit, fall back, fall in, right? Because I want it to stay happy, right? I don't want everything to be so deep. There's such a wisdom in movement, in variation. And then go to the other side, right? Right, to the other side. And I'm using rhythm, spring. I'm trying to make it so the action of taking more weight, shifting gravity, and opening my chest are the same, right? You know, so like I'm constantly trying to see the wonder in things, right? And one of the wonders that I see is that although instructions come out in time, the pose itself is simultaneous. So there isn't a time lag on the pranic level. So as soon as I go over and I realize that I can join, everything happens at once. It's not like down, lift, open. I could teach it that way. Instead, I'm like realizing that if I'm listening to the wholeness of movement, it writes itself. It's already simultaneous, right? The measure of time is part of the illusion, right? It all happens at once. Right? We're like, wait, dang. Now I'm going to go back and forth and try to make it more rhythmic because rhythm makes continuity. Continuity calms the mind down, right? So I'm going to take advantage of the continuity of movement so my mind doesn't have to grind so much. I'm going to start feeling more. Dang, I like that. Right? So now I can tell my groin's beginning to open, both sides, right? So I'm like appreciating that. Thank goodness for movement, right? I like that. And I'm going to come back to the midline and go, whoa. That's a change of color for my groin, right? So I'm going to make sure it buries in. So if you're sitting on the floor and your name is Bethany, go into Dandasana. So roll your thighs in, because you want, although we just did movement outwardly, right? Part of the yoga is happening towards the midline. So I'm consciously grabbing underneath my leg with my fingers. I'm moving the skin and the bone and rolling it in, because I want, and I'm looking for a sensation at the very base of my spine of relief. Oh, you mean yoga poses fold inward too, as they're moving outward? Yep, they do. And then release and bring your legs wide again. So it's like, wait, is there an inward fold even though my knees are apart? It's not the same. So I'm going to study here for a second. Okay, I'm going to bring my legs back together and go, okay, I don't feel the overt inward, the pose folding inward. So I'm going to go back to Tadasana, right? And I know that there's something happening when my femur bones roll in. Ooh, lift my chest. Don't forget to lift my chest. Right? So now that is a sensation that isn't just dependent on rolling my thighs in. Rolling my thighs in is the doorway. Right? So now when I go to move my arm, my legs wide, right? And now there's no way to get through the same door, right? But can I get to the same sensation, right? So right away, it helps me to go a little bit more on the front edge of my sitting bones, right? Because that's similar to the sensation. So I'm coming forward just a little bit. And as I lift my chest and open up, what's dropping? Even though it's rolling open. Remember, prana is simultaneous. Good, and then release. So I'm about to try to say something that's extra, stay patient right now. That's extra deep. So in yogic realization of asana, but in all the limbs, there are these things called bandhas, and they have more directly to do with your spine and how it goes up and out through your body. But so there's an inward dimension that the bandhas, and they say, well, bandhas line up nadis, and I don't know what any of those words exactly mean, but I know somehow I come into a smoother river if I'm able to follow the bandhas, right? So the bandhas are happening. There are three basic ones. Lift the sternum, go up the chest, kind of gently gripping. So there's a movement up through the spine. And then there's one that's doing that and moving the organs up, right? So, but that's the inside, right? And so the bandhas are in varying degrees are architects of yoga poses from inside to out. Like they're the plans. So, and you know, it's enough for a yoga pose for you to know there's an inward folding and an outward flowing in every yoga pose. And what the yogis have done has identified that in terms of bandhas, right? So when I'm rolling my thighs in and there's a dropping occurring, right? So this is part of the magic of, remember, in order to realize the earth in poses, you have to have something drop inward. So I'm rolling this in. right? So this is like the tilling of the soil that allows for a rising, right? That's harder to feel. I can feel it when I use my body to feel it. That's one doorway. When I take my legs wide now, this is where memory is going to have to be helping me too. As I sit here, and I mentioned to you to find how the pose folds inward and then blooms outwardly. I'm saying come a little bit more in the front edge of your sitting bone. Just a little bit. And then let the stem come up the spine and the blooming happen at the side armpit chest. Right? So you've got this, and then release. Now I'm losing connection to the Bonda, right? Now I'm going to come forward again. And so even though there's this forward and opening, as I come forward, what I want to get is there's a simultaneous dimension. So just forget everything I said for a second. Sit back in your chair with your legs wide. If I were to instruct purely asana, I'd have you come forward in the front of your sit bones, pick a point at your tailbone and extend out through each knee. Right? So I'm having you create an anchor, and then in order to spread out through each knee into the vector, right? So if you're on the floor of the Upavista Konasana, I want you to broaden across your sacrum. So that's the outside of the movement. As soon as I come forward, there's an opportunity to connect out through the knees and then down to the feet, right? That's the asana part of the instruction, and then release. The inner part of the instruction comes from the Bonda or the Bondas, right? So I'm bringing my legs back together. I'm imprinting my memory. It's like, oh yeah, something folds inward in order for it to bloom outwardly, right? And so I'm touching up my memory to that, taking my legs wide, because this is going to get harder to be simultaneous as soon as the asana gets more complicated, right? So now I'm trying to find out that extension out through each knee. Now I want that deepening in the very low abdomen that is supporting the lift in my chest. I could just extend from out through each knee and lift my chest. I'm trying to show you there's a simultaneous calendar, right? So I'm trying to find the deepening before I broaden across my sacrum and go out through each knee. I'm trying to mark both of these layers with my breath, with the gap between worlds. Good, and then release. Even to stay there, I have to strain a little bit. So now, let's do it without the folding inward. Just take your arms. That's going to come more from the tops of your shoulders. And so if you wanted to stand up, those you can stand and you stand up, right? And so you're just kind of going out through each space. And then I'm going to come in. I'm going to come forward. I'm going to try to stay centered on what's unchanging. And then take my arms up. So I can't. So how can I feel my sitting bones fold inwardly, extend outwardly, balance your head over your neck? Good. And then I'm going to drop, come right back to the inward by leaning forward. Right? And then I'm going to go back to outward, trying to stay connected to the inward and take up more space. Oh, my neck. Oh, my neck. Right? So I'm trying to have it all. Right? And then release. And I'm going to keep adding instruction. So we're trying to get this inward, outward, and then the next layer of instruction is as your arms and legs are wide, I'm going to want you to add awareness of the joints, right? The empty place in your limbs, right? So I'm going to come forward, fold under. There, my mind has to see them in sequence, right? Take them wide. So now I'm wide. I'm folding in, I'm expanding out. Now my ankles and my knees, ooh, my sitting bones are, I'm collapsing because I'm off balance, right? So I'm going to activate my sitting bones. I'm going to try to go up through my shoulders, center of my elbows, the wrists, and then I'm going to try to see them all at once with my eyes open and breathe and release. So what's tricky about the poses, and bring your legs together. What's tricky about the poses is as they complicate and there's more instructions, it's harder to stay with the way that they fold inward. So I'm coming forward again. I almost kind of want to say a prayer, right? And I don't mean a prayer with my head. I mean, I will kind of want to ground again because I know in my efforts and my actions, there was more for me to do. And I got to hold that not as a judgment, but as a truth. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to try this again. And I'm going to try to find the place that lets me stay more connected to the folding inward that is simultaneous with the outward blooming of the movement. And believe me, the inward realization is harder than the outward realization. Right? So now I'm going to start asana again by equalizing the pressure between my hands, grounding my elbows, lifting my chest, like there it is. My effort can be consistent with the inward folding of a yoga pose. The one that touches the earth and touches the sky, right? That's on the inner fold, not the active fold. All right, and so I'm going to go back up again. Finding the root. What if Tadasana was like a big tree trunk, right? It's like from things, everything grows. Like the tree has to roll inward and go and create a rolling in to see an expanding root system, right? So here's the folding in above ground. So I can expand out below ground. Right? And so I'm doing that. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm not talking about anything. I'm asking you to practice increasing your dimension and see what you get back, what your mind receives back. I'm finding it hard to expand my root system out the ground. I can feel the fold in, I can feel the placeholder. Now I'm going to be a little bit more goofy. Okay, now open. So it's folding in and my sitting bones are letting out sound down through the ground. And then breathing. Okay. So now I'm going to take my legs wide again. So now, above ground, my legs are following that, spreading under the ground. Right? My arms go wide. I need to find my joints, especially my neck. Right? How's the effort? Is it equal between each upper arm? Find the empty spaces in your elbow. Let the empty spaces in your elbow train your upper arm how to work. It's not from effort into realization. It's from realization into effort. Ooh, I gotta open my palms. How's the earth doing? Am I connected? Good, and then release. And then over and over. Here's gonna come the wisdom of the flowing part, right? Over. Everything's changing, but now there's rhythm as the through line, right? So I'm going and then I'm gonna go over and up and then down and then over and up Oh, one of them does better than the other side. Damn it. Oh, well. Right. Right. And everything's moving. So as soon as this arm comes down, I hope you're feeling the water wave going down to the opposite leg. Right. Like as you go this way, it opens up, it's spreading, and then everything's moving down. Your hand is traveling through your spine and going the other way. So make the rhythm have the emptiness in the room. Ground, open. You are always swimming in space, right? Always, right? So you're trying to keep your spine connected, right? And so I want to feel expansive, right? But then I'm going to add something. I'm going to close it up. I'm going to go this way and have it go up and over my, something closes. I'm going to let it come back. I'm going to reach with my fingertips through the empty space. So I stay connected to the empty space of the room through my palm and my fingertips. Then I can feel the underside of my arms, right? And then I'm going to go over and up. And my hand is getting mirrored as a shadow traveling through my sitting bones, right? And then I'm going to go this way and over. And every movement I make is traveling like a shadow crossing the illumination of my spine, right? Over, lock, be of service to the earth, to the world, right? And then down. Everything's touching everything. Over, up. Good, and then release. And come back to center. Feel the midline again. So one of the things that I'm rocking because I want to find the earth again, right? So the idea that my arm movements travel through, right? Here it comes. It's bringing up, it's shadows crossing my spine. It's opening to the other, right? It's coming through, coming out, coming through, coming out, right? Everything is happening, right? I'm an illumination, actually, and I mean that literally. I don't actually mean that as barfy new age stuff. That truth is not for my mind, it's for my spine, right? And then back. So then I'm going to go back to prayer. Go, wait, I mean, like this would be without as much sunshine, right? So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to let the anchoring of grounding of my elbows, of my hands, be the midline of my spine. And then instead of moving all my limbs, whether my hands are like this or not, I want to like have the grounding. Then I want to open the palms, the skin on the palms, as I open my chest, as I fold my inner thighs in down towards the earth, as I lift my chest and bloom out the side armpit chest, as I lift my chest. Wait, could all this be happening at once? Yep. Then I'm going to let it go. Right? I'm going to go like, huh. So mostly I live on this level where I'm not staying connected. I'm doing this kind of vaudeville hands with my being, right? But sometimes I'm going to come back and I'm going to see how everything's connected. My mind cannot sustain that throughout my entire day. I cannot be this connected. It's not practical, but it's here. It was always here. Good. And then release. So, of course, I always want to train the mind by doing things wrong because that's the language my mind knows, right? So I'm going to take my arms wide. And this is naughty, but I actually learned this way. I want you to, we're going to do the same thing, but not care that it's connected, right? Let's just, and then when you move this way, right, you have to start speeding it up to create the drama, right? Oh yeah, that's cool. Well, there's nothing wrong with speeding it up, right? You can speed it up. I'm just being hollow. I'm being a scarecrow now. Right? And then we're like, okay, that's good for like 72% of my life, right? And I'm going to go back to letting the emptiness be full, letting my skin be part of the pose, let the empty space in the room be part of the pose. Acknowledge that I'm swimming through space-time. I am space-time, right? My body's my measure, right? My hands come in across through my spine. I'm gonna go the other way across. Ooh, now over here, because I lose balance, I lose connection to my spine. So I'm gonna open it back out. Notice I'm grounding the back knee. I'm gonna open it back out. And I'm gonna watch where I can stay connected through my spine and then where it kind of collapses because of tightness in my shoulder and a loss of balance, right? So then I'm gonna, oh God, I'm so glad I get to open again. Okay, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do the same thing over here, right? I could do it lazy, you know, without depth, right? Then I'm gonna try to see it as opening my spine through my limb, bringing it back through, watching it go across. Ooh, where does the effort and the strain make my spinal energy drop? Open it back up as I move it open. Then I'm going to watch it collapse, my connection to what's here collapse as I struggle for balance, as my shoulder hurts, right? And then go, oh, wait, I like it like that. I like it out here, right? I'm going to go back to the midline again, right? And go, wait, you mean with all this swimming, the folding inward and the opening of the Bonda was always here? Dang it. Seems like I forget everything all the time. That's why I practice, right? I get better at exploring the more I practice. Oh, lions and tigers and bears. Gotta find the front edge of my sitting bones. In order to move my arms, I have to fall back behind my balance point. So I'd rather be here. I have to go here. I have to bring here back to the dullness of here. I can do that. Here comes the shadow. Can't believe my body casts a shadow right across my spine and then opens it again, right? So it's got to cross, open, right? Open. So now I'm going to start to fold the practice in. I'm going to go down, less space. Instead of worried about my arm going wide, I'm going to open my spine wide. And then if you want to add the arm, that's like, you know, whatever. But I'm trying to go and find the inward connection. When I don't get the drama of my arm, I actually can stay with the Bonda level better. Notice I'm not teaching you how to do the Bonda, right? I'm trying to tell you that something's there. So on this next one, I am going to open. So I want all the layers. I want the inward layer, right? I'm going to let it travel through, over, up. Oh my goodness. It's everywhere, actually. Hmm. What does everywhere feel like? What do I have to allow for it to be everywhere? For me to be part of something, right? And then come on back to center. If you allow that your movements are everywhere, you do have to restrict your ego, right? Right? Because like you're just practicing. So I'm forward again, and now I'm landing. So the movement of my arms, I'm trying to find an extra level of space on each side of my spine where my sitting bones are. I'm practicing a little bit of symmetry. Take stock of where you've been. All right, and then get in a position of support for Shavasana. So I'm doing all this stuff. I could tell you to soften the organs by making space. Remember last week, or whenever I taught last, I was talking about releasing your gums, even your teeth. I do that so so the center of my chest can rise without restraining. Find a way for the chair to hold me up, for me to feel sensitive. Let in, to let go. Let go, to let in. You already have a vessel. Utilize it. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. In Shavasana, the spine falls inward and lets the earth hold it up. Feel your breath. Thank your body. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. Close them again if you want to. And then open them again. So if you choose to start exploring more in your practice, don't explore extraordinarily difficult things. Explore the wonder, like this idea of, remember, I'm only trying to use language to help describe an experience that you might have, you might not, right? But today, for me, the having it cast and bring through the illumination of my spine and cast a shadow as I move my limbs, that was a really good instruction for me. Don't know if it was good for you, but could see things crossing through and the expression from spine outward, right? That's why you explore and why you need to find your own language and let it constantly change, right? Just stay grounded in your body as you explore, right? Your practice is your safety, right? And if you don't feel that weird thing I got all caught up in today, if you didn't feel that, then it's just let it go. But ask yourself, what does it mean to feel that? There's no some magic success in letting your limbs cross your midline. It's already happening. Whether you decide to see the connection and the crossing of it, it's up to you. I'm not going to move at a party, holiday party or New Year's Eve party, moving and touching space like this, right? But God damn, it feels good right now. All of a sudden, I'm turning my hands and letting it be my whole spine and going like, wow, that's cool. And like when I'm turning my hands in right now, I'm connecting it to the rotation at the inner groin. And then I'm opening it back up. It's like, holy cow, right? I don't know. Maybe that sounds like I'm on acid. I'm not. I'm just letting it be alive for my practice. Then I'll go back to like making lunch, right? It's easy to go back to where it's ordinary. All right, everybody, have a good New Year's. I'll be here next week. Think about letting go of something to change your practice. Maybe it's letting go of feeling goofy as you explore weird shit. You know, I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. Just stay grounded enough. Some of you need to stay grounded enough.